Amen. I'm back again, y'all. Okay, we still on this talk about the birthright citizenship in Congress, and President Trump is not giving up, and he sees something in America that, you know, a lot of people are seeming to ignore because of him being the president of the United States and because of his own history of immigrant being a baby of an immigrant. But let me tell you, okay, back then it was good during the time Trump family was coming to the United States and a whole lot of other immigrants were coming here to the United States. Okay, now, what people don't seem to understand is that the people who's coming to the United States by TPS, or they come in here for some kind of long-term visit with relatives, or some kind of way of just coming to the United States, you know, on a visa for school, whatever it might be. And then they get pregnant, they have a baby, and then automatically the child becomes a citizen of our country. And then that also anchors them in to become citizens of the United States. And you really don't know who they are. Okay? They have not truly been, you know, converted to American values and American laws and our customs here. When the child is young, because of course it's the baby, doesn't have any say so, because the child is a little small innocent child. It doesn't have a say so on who or what they should be called when they're born. You know, as a American child, or wherever part of the country that child came from, their ancestry is. And it's only to save America's children and also for those children of the immigrant child to be saved. Because see, the thing is that every child has a right to his own identity from his time of birth. Okay? And I think it's very selfish, and I think it's a very ignorant rule for the birthright citizen. At that time, the African had to be included as a citizen because they were slaves, and they earned that because they was already here. So that was already in them. They were already born and in the soil here. Okay? And their family history was already here, even if they were African slaves. They didn't know some of them were able to find their families back in Africa. And there was a whole lot that wasn't able to do that. So that's why they had to change that, amend that law, include that 14th Amendment in that law. When you go deeper into the American history, and that's why they wrote it the way at that time, the way they did. It was written in an old English way for what was being done at that time with children that were born that were slave children, and they wasn't citizens at the time, so they had to include them. That didn't go for that was for every child at that time that was the slave children that were born on American soil. Y'all have to go deeper. And the thing is by having that child who is born here as an immigrant child so their family could anchor themselves in, that is not fair to that child. Because the child has a right to his true identity. And that child was born, parents are from Nicaragua. That's who that child is, a Nicaraguan. And to his people. And to that is what he's supposed to learn at the first. That's what he's supposed to learn about himself or herself from the time they come out of their mother's womb. It's not wicked for us to change the birthright citizenship to only children that were actually born citizens of the United States of America. where their parents were already citizens here and their parents already identify themselves as an American family. Even if they came from China and they family been here from China for over 100 years, then and they been here and their children been here and their children and they raised they most of the 4 generations. If they've been here for 4 generations already of their ancestry in America, yes. But a person who just enters into America, has a baby, automatically should not become an American citizen. It should be taken, it should go over a time period of generations. When you just come into this society as a newborn, you identify with where you born. And that's what is important to the child. To know that he or she is a Nicaraguan, their family was Nicaraguan, and know about the Nicaraguan heritage and roots in Nicaragua. So if they ever do decide to ever leave home to go visit another country, they still have their identity and don't forget where they came from. In case something happened, they have a place to go home to their family and to their family values and history and roots and a place to be called home. And they're not an orphan in the world. So I'm saying this because that's how it's supposed to be. We had no other home. The African slave children had no other home but America. And they were scattered all over the place. So that was why we had to stay as citizens of the country of this nation. These people coming from other countries or whatever like that, they have a home. They have a country. And they supposed to stay in it and work in it and live in it and do everything else in it. They're not supposed to come a citizen of another person's country unless they were in bondage there. Because they have no home. They were owned by someone, and it's just so deep like that. And some people are just on the surface. The child is in the best interest of that child, that unborn child, to be born where it originally came from, of those of their history, so they don't rebel against Americans. Okay? Because they become rebellious. And if you can look outside, they don't want to learn nothing about American history or anything like that, because when their parents had them, all their parents poured into them was their life back in Nicaragua. And all they want to do is they're going to blot out everything about America and only take in what their parents gave to them. Hand that rocks the cradle rules the world. And if the mother is a Nicaraguan and the father's a Nicaraguan, that's who that child is. Not an American. He's a Nicaraguan and he needs to go live in Nicaragua. And come here on its own free will. Not by their parents selling them to a new nation or bringing them here or running from another country and then want to stay. Because Jesus came from Nazareth, outside of a place called Jerusalem, in those regions. And it was like he had to go into another state, another town over the border, because at that time, Caesar, not Caesar, the Caesar or what is his name? Herodias wanted to kill all firstborn Jewish children because they were overpopulated. And then on Jesus's time, it was the Messiah. It was a certain time of the year that the Jews and everything they so called, Messiah was supposed to come. And that time, those astrologists and all that other stuff told him all of this stuff about what they doing, and plus including it into their religion. So that was what they declared. They decreed a killing on the child's life. So the family had to flee on the life of the child. You understand what I'm saying? It wasn't because of the parents' life. It was because of the child's life. Okay, when Jesus had to be born in another place. But see, it's the parents that's fleeing for whatever reasons, for their own selfish whatever reasons, and wanting the child to be in America so they could become an American, and they're using the child, but you're not really thinking in the best interest of the child. I'm an educator, and I see it, and let me tell you something. One thing we have to look at as an early educator, is the best interest of the child. Even in the courthouse when you're going through a divorce, who would be the best custodian parent for the child? What environment would be best for the child? Tell every immigrant child that grew up in America, even though children do it anyway, it doesn't really matter. But you hear stories of Haitian children that had to grow up here, and it wasn't really their choice. Their parents brought them here. They had to go to school with American children, and they had to go through that cultural shock. And how they are today towards American children. They are rebellious because they had to grow up being different from a different nation around American children, and American children teased them and made fun of them and did this and that to them. This is the Haitian children's story. And now they so rebellious and hostile and angry with America. You see what I'm saying now? Do anybody follow what I'm saying here? That is not good for anybody to have a child in America if they're not a citizen of this country. And automatically their child become an American citizen. They have to already embrace this country and this nation and respect our ways and values here and our culture here to order to become a citizen of the United States. And they should have been living here for a certain period of time before they are even approved to be a citizen. They got to at least be in this country for at least 10 years to 15 or so years so that they can have a more understanding of the nature of this country, the history of this country, and don't just come here and just step right fresh off the boat and think, because you're still going to have those traditions and customs and ways and language and doing things the way you came from, the place you came from. And that is not good for America, because then America start losing her true identity. So the best place for a child to be born, and wherever place their parents, and no other place in the world does that, and that's the reason why they do it. They do it in all other countries except here in the United States of America, and that's why it needs to be changed. The true citizens of this country and the foundation of this country are the only citizens of this country, and everything else from then on now, and I'm talking about from now, not talking about from where already, it was different. We talking about starting from 2026 on, from now, and making a 250 year of celebrating America. And what we found is taking root in our nation, and we shouldn't allow it to take root in our nation, is that 14th Amendment needs to be only for citizens of the United States, and their children being born here are citizens. No other person coming from any other place here from a visa, here on some kind of immigration status or whatever, should become a citizen of the United States, even if they have a child. Because this is what will cause America to collapse, because America will lose her true identity. And that's why a lot of other countries, Japan does it. You born in Japan and you're an American, you are considered an American. That is what you are. If your parents were American and they had you in Japan, your children will be American, not Japanese. And that's what I needed to share. But I wanted to show this video of how people having this discussion and how happy, because they're not going deeper than the surface. They're not. They only staying on the surface. Well, what are we going to do about? Well, those immigrants of that time, of 4 different generations ago, was different. We had too many immigrants living in the United States undocumented, and they not supposed to be here, and they not American because they don't embrace America. They are rebellious. This is what we're saying.
Supreme Court. So in Florida, the State Board of Education has approved new rules that would require students in Florida's college system and adult education programs to prove that they are U.S. citizens or lawfully present in the country. At the national level, the Supreme Court issued a major ruling connected to the president's executive order on birthright citizenship. Now, while the court did not decide whether the order is constitutional.
If they want to hurt Donald Trump in his presidency, you can do that on some other term, okay? But don't mess around with it. Comes to the identity and the true identity of American to hurt the American people. Don't hurt the American people because you want to hurt Donald Trump. Okay, Donald Trump is Donald Trump. But this is he's doing is what he's doing for the American people. And that's what they need to understand. There are some of us here who are native, foundational people and true patriots of this country. And what you are doing is you making it bad for us and not really for Donald Trump. Because Donald Trump is a child, came from an immigrant family, and he's doing this to give this to America. That's what you need to understand because we don't have those kind of immigrant children growing up in America today. We got children growing up in America today that are rebellious.
It did limit when lower courts can block federal policies nationwide. So joining us to help break down what all of this means, we have immigration attorney Renata Castro. Thank you so much for joining us today. We'll try to kind of weed through this. It's a bit complicated, but it does affect people. Let's start first in Florida. So in simple terms, what did the Board of Education approve?
So the Board of Education has approved that undocumented students will not be able to attend public colleges in the state of Florida. It's very important to note that undocumented aliens in the state of Florida who were attending higher education programs were actually paying out-of-state tuition, because I understand that there is a lot of misinformation with the public related to alleged benefits that undocumented students receive in the state, but that's far from the truth. I believe that this will be challenged, and it may be another issue, immigration related, that we see rise all the way to the Supreme Court of the United States.
Yeah, and we'll see what happens there, as it is a mostly conservative court. So we hear that roughly 8,000 undocumented students graduate from Florida high schools every year. So who will feel the impact of this rule? Does this mean these students can graduate from high school but not continue their education at a state college or even enroll in GED classes?
Well, the people who will feel the impact of this decision the most are going to be public school administrators. Local public colleges in the state of Florida have suffered quite a bit of a revenue loss now that they don't enjoy the international student enrollment that they used to, because student visas are being denied at a 65% higher rate during the second Trump term than they were before. And once again, international students pay 3 times the state tuition just for the privilege of being enrolled in a Florida college. Now what's going to happen is that these undocumented students will continue to graduate from Florida high schools. However, they will move on to either private institutions or they will go to school out of state. So this is really a loss for the state of Florida more than anything.
Because they will still have options. They just will be different than what they had before this ruling. So let's turn to Washington now, where there has been a lot of confusion about this latest Supreme Court ruling. What exactly did the justices decide, and what?
Well, anyway, y'all, the president of the United States is not tightening up because this is what we want. We are the people. Even though it's few of us probably in numbers, because a lot of people, we see this is how we've been outnumbered, because we got people that were born here from parents that were immigrants, and the story been passed to them that immigrants built this nation and they losing the true identity of America. And everything is running in favor of anybody coming to America just having a baby and just overpopulating America like that. And then on top of that, losing the identity of the true American people. And that's why it's important that birthright citizenship should be amended. Okay, it should be amended. It should be revised and revisited and also changed to make it very clear of today in 2026 as we go moving forward in rhythm and time in America, that that is the root that's taking place in the United States of America, that God is saying that needs to not take root here. Okay, we gotta fight and get it out. We got to get it out. We got to say, look, it ain't going to happen that way. Because these people, kids, do not embrace our culture here. They do not do, they don't listen to rules. And, you know, that's why there's a lot of gangs you see coming and developing all these different types of gangs in America. All these nigga, whatever gangs they are out here. Come on now. And that's what everybody's fighting to do now. They doing it even in Africa, even in South Africa. They fighting to keep their true South African customs, culture, identity, in the whole nine. This is national. This ain't just America. People fighting to keep their identity. People just slipping through the cracks here in America, and America just letting anything on through the doors. And we got to tighten up our borders, and we got to save the American people. We got to keep our citizens safe here. What the hell they think they playing with? That's why we need some new young people in politics. We do, because you'd be surprised what they know. I was listening to one young man. He's out here. I wish I got to find his channel again. I don't know why I didn't subscribe to it. Just so when he come on, I get the notification and I can share what he shares out there with people. This young brother can't be no more than in his early 20s, somewhere maybe in mid 20s, whatever. But he is on fire and he knows a lot of stuff. And I said his parents were teaching, either his parents were teaching him well or he has an anointing, because that young brother be on it. He be saying things I didn't even know. He be deep. He's deep and he's very young. Mm-hmm. He knows a lot about his black history. He knows a lot about American history. He knows a lot about presidents. And I'm like, what? I said, either this young brother, parents had him really taught well, or he's just an anointed child. And I gotta find his channel again. I'm gonna find his channel and I will share it with you. He got these old people sitting up there making laws and rules and talking about America. Look, it's because they don't even care about America. See, these people care more about profit than people. These politicians that pander you and everything for the vote and stuff, you know, you listening to their policies, but they ain't moving on those policies. All they doing is just sitting there, just giving you a lot of lip service and telling you they're going to do this and they're going to fix that, just to do photo ops and maybe just do it for the cameras and make it seem like they really out there doing something good. And they not. That's why you got to do your own research and do it for yourself and keep having your voice out there when you are voting for that policy. You know what I'm saying? To go through. But they block it. They blocking it. Because American people, like I was out there today, I was making contacts with people, talking to people about the history of this country, the 250 years, as people didn't even know. You'd be surprised how many people was out there in the streets, didn't know, boycotting the Chinese in the industries, like businesses and everything, and we going deeper than that in some places. But still in all, you know, how American people are fighting out here, and you got to be out there doing the footwork. You got to get, you know, sometimes go out there and just be one of those people with your voice in the street with people, because some people don't even got a doggone phone or anything out there. You know, you got homeless people on the street. Talk to them too. You know, you'd be surprised what they know or what they can tell you about the history of that street corner they've been hanging on for the last 40, 30 years. I'm just saying, don't pass nobody by. You know, that's what God want us to do out here on the kingdom. You know, how we supposed to be as human beings on the kingdom, how we supposed to find God's lost sheep. Got to bring some awareness. So, I just wanted to share that with y'all real quickly. But we're going to be talking about it some more, but I just wanted to say why I'm going so hard at it, and especially for Black America, the foundation. And I'm just daily going hard, because some of them coming in here like our kids, we adopted all them dreadlocks. Dreadlocks wasn't the way we used to. You couldn't come in your hair with your head. You're in a Black American family household with your head nappy. We didn't play that nappy chappy stuff. Talk about I'm happy with my nappy stuff. Hell to the no. That wasn't tolerated. All of a sudden, they started messing up their culture with other cultures, and all of a sudden now all these men running around with their hair braided up and long hair and braids and everything, and don't even know their true identity, and they getting misidentified as a Jamaican or something else. That didn't come from America. That came from Jamaica. The dreadlocks that belongs to the people. I forgot what they call their tribe out there in Jamaica. The people of Nazarene. They the remember Judah had like 12 tribes. Okay, Isaac anyway. His son Judah, and not Joseph. He had 12 tribes. So you do the math. They related, but not that related. You understand what I'm saying? God chose Judah, and out of that Judah tribe, there's 12 different people, 12 brothers. There's Reuben. Go down the line. Joseph of Isaac. I mean Isaac, who was the father, of course, of Israel. Israel, who was Jacob. Jacob had children, and Judah came out of Jacob. You know, down that lineage of Jesus. And when you find the story of the black race, okay, of all the different tribes of us. That's why we have our own tribe, the tribe we come from. We from the Judah, but we also, which one are we? That's what you got to recognize. Remember, there's 12. There was 12, and there's some lost ones because remember when Solomon lost, I think 11 of them, and there's only one. The rest of them scattered after Solomon. He got married to all them different people, them different women, and those different cultures and religions and stuff. When you search the Bible, you'll find out what we got in our spirit. You know, nobody else's spirit gonna fly like the Black American spirit, like the Black American in America. You know, they gotta make a name for themselves or whatever they are to their own nation. Okay, and I guess we the strongest one out of all of them. We were one of those lost tribes. Well, it's a deep story. I can't get that deep with it, but it's deep. But anyway, y'all, I'm going to try to get back with y'all on this some other time. But I already talked about how your culture change, your identity change when you start adapting to other different cultures and different identities. They look like you, but they not you. It's in your bloodline. It's in your lineage. And with that being said, I love you. God bless you. And